Welcome back to the Infinite Debate. Today, two towering voices of the 20th century return to confront each other. George Orwell, the author of 1984, and Aldous Huxley, the author of Brave New World. The question: what future should we fear more? A world of brutal external control, or one of voluntary submission through pleasure and distraction? Let's begin.
In my vision, the gravest danger is the boot stamping on a human face, forever. Power wielded through fear, censorship, and surveillance. Imagine a society where every thought is monitored, every word recorded. The terror of constant punishment forces conformity. That is the nightmare I warn of, a world where obedience is carved into our very bones.
George, your vision is chilling, but it underestimates the subtlety of control. My fear that people will not resist tyranny because they won't even recognize it. Imagine a world where entertainment is endless, desires are engineered, and people no longer care about freedom. Why torture bodies when you can seduce souls? In my nightmare, people are enslaved not by pain, but by pleasure. The cage is velvet, the bars invisible, and the prisoner is smiling.
But pleasure, Aldous, is fleeting. Fear, however, is eternal. A whip across the back reminds you of your subjugation with every scar. Fear is reliable. It compels silence, it breeds conformity. Power sustained through terror does not fade with distraction.
And yet, terror awakens rebellion. If you make life unbearable, people dream of liberation. But if you make them comfortable, distracted, entertained, they will not even notice the chains. A people who no longer desire freedom will not fight to regain it.
So, is the greater threat brute force, or the quiet lull of distraction? Let's dig deeper.
Power, at its core, is about control over truth. In 1984, the party sustains power not by making people happy, but by making them afraid. Afraid to question, afraid to think. When people live in constant terror, they cling to authority as their only anchor. History proves this. Stalin, Mao, Hitler, all ruled through fear. To be seen as disobedient meant exile, prison, execution. Fear silences dissent before it can even take root.
Yes, but fear is a blunt instrument. History also shows us Rome, bred in circuses, pacified millions. Why spill blood when you can drown the people in amusements? The most effective dictators will not need firing squads. They will flood citizens with pleasures, so abundant that resistance feels irrelevant. That is the genius of my nightmare.
Circuses end when the bread runs out. Pleasure cannot erase suffering when it strikes. A bomb shatters the illusion of comfort. Fear keeps people obedient even in famine. Pleasure cannot outlast pain.
But George, ask yourself, what if the famine never comes? What if the system endlessly supplies just enough bread, just enough games, just enough soma to keep the public docile? People may never even realize what they have lost. Look around today. Infinite scrolling, instant gratification, consumerism. People willingly surrender their time and agency to devices, to platforms, to corporations. No dictator is needed. Our dopamine systems have been hijacked. People enslave themselves not through whips and chains, but through likes and notifications. Tell me, George, is this not my nightmare?
And yet, Aldous, surveillance is more pervasive than ever. Governments track data, cameras record streets, algorithms predict behaviors. Fear is disguised in digital form. A quiet authoritarianism lurks behind every click. Yes, the people may choose to share their lives online, but those who dissent, those who resist, they are catalogued, monitored, flagged. What you see as voluntary submission, I see as enforced conformity wrapped in convenience.
Convenience that people embrace willingly. They line up for the latest device. They beg to be watched. They surrender privacy in exchange for entertainment. No boot is required, George. They kneel before the screen of their own accord.
Perhaps. But do not forget, the same screen that distracts also listens, also spies. Behind the smile of entertainment lurks the shadow of my party. My nightmare is the destruction of truth. In 1984, history is rewritten daily, facts become fluid, memory is manipulated. Without truth, freedom dies. A people cut off from reality cannot resist. We see this today: disinformation campaigns, propaganda networks, history distorted until the very notion of truth collapses. This is my warning: truth erased by force.
And, in mine, truth does not need to be erased. It is drowned in a sea of irrelevance. 100 channels, 1,000 distractions. Truth loses value, not by censorship, but by trivialization. Ask yourself, which is more dangerous? A truth forbidden or a truth ignored? In my world, truth is simply forgotten, buried beneath gossip and spectacle. A society not deprived of truth, but indifferent to it.
So the question becomes, is truth silenced or simply ignored?
Silenced truth breeds martyrs. Ignored truth breeds nothing. At least censorship provokes anger. Indifference kills the very capacity to care.
And yet, anger without thought burns quickly. Indifference lasts forever.
Humans are resilient, but fear can break them. Under unbearable suffering, they betray each other, even those they love most. Control thrives on despair. I have seen it. War, prisons, tyranny. The boot teaches obedience with every strike.
Humans are equally fragile when seduced. Offer them pleasure, safety, convenience, and they surrender willingly. No need for torture chambers. The prison is sweet, and they build it themselves. In Brave New World, people laugh, sing, dance, and yet they are hollow, emptied of meaning. A humanity that chooses anesthesia over awareness is no less enslaved than one chained to the wall.
But at least pain awakens conscience. A man who suffers knows he suffers. How does one awaken from a dream of pleasure? How do you rouse a population that does not wish to wake?
That, George, is precisely why my vision is more terrifying.
So perhaps the 21st century is not Orwell or Huxley, but both at once?
Fear can be resisted. Tyrants fall when people grow brave. Even the most oppressive regimes eventually collapse when suffering becomes unbearable. But once apathy sets in, once people stop caring, how do you awaken them? What rebellion can rise from a people too entertained to notice their chains?
And yet, George, your vision offers no hope at all. Endless terror extinguishes humanity entirely. At least in mine, people still laugh, even if it is hollow laughter. At least they feel joy, even if it is shallow.
A hollow laugh is worse than a cry of pain. Pain can spark revolt. Laughter anesthetizes. It robs even the possibility of change.
Perhaps. But your terror turns men into corpses. My pleasure turns them into children. Which is worse? A graveyard of souls or a nursery of infants?
Both are prisons, but mine still leaves the possibility of fire. Yours leaves only ashes that smile.
Both futures haunt us: Orwell's iron fist, Huxley's velvet prison, the boot and the screen, the whip and the pleasure. Perhaps the real danger is not choosing which to fear, but realizing that both may already be here. This has been the Infinite Debate. Until next time. And until then, keep questioning infinitely.